Curious how a major engineering blunder can spark record-breaking success? Porsche engineers made a big mistake that looked like a total failure, but their errors actually ended up leading to amazing success. Let's find out what happened to Porsche in the 1960 Le Mans. Let's start with a bit of history. The Porsche 917 was developed in the late 1960s with one goal in mind: to dominate the 24 hours of Le Mans, the world's most famous endurance race. Porsche had already achieved many successes with their smaller cars, but they wanted to create something truly special, something that could outshine the competition. At that time, Porsche wasn't exactly known for designing ultra-luxury cars like it is today. They didn't have a very big budget and were a humble German manufacturer that had never even won a World Sports Car Championship. Porsche engineers went all out designing the 917. They gave it a 4.5-liter flat 12 engine, which was incredibly powerful for its time. This amazing engine could produce more than 600 horsepower, which was a lot back then. The car's lightweight construction using aluminum and magnesium made it incredibly fast. However, there was a problem. Actually, several problems. The first thing you need to know about the Porsche 917 is that it's incredibly light. Weighing in at about 800 kilograms, it was nearly 200 kilograms lighter than some of its rivals. This was thanks to some exceptional engineering. The car was made of titanium suspension joints, a steering box, an aluminum disc center, and a fiberglass body, all designed to keep the weight down. At the heart of Porsche's innovation was a revolutionary chassis developed by engineer Helmut Bott. This frame weighed just 42 kilograms. The structure was made of several tubes welded together to form triangles, and these tubes were crafted from a special aluminum alloy to keep them light. Engineers calculated the maximum forces the car would face during a race and used these calculations to determine exactly how strong each tube needed to be. Don't you guys also think these engineers thought out of the box? Yep. However, there were many problems with the car. When the Porsche 917 first hit the track, it quickly became clear that there were serious handling issues. The Porsche 917's handling problems were mainly due to its instability at high speeds. Drivers reported that the car felt like it was wandering on the straight and was difficult to control in high-speed corners. This was particularly dangerous on tracks like the Mulsanne Straight at Le Mans, where speeds could exceed 200 miles per hour. The root of the problem was the car's aerodynamics. The original design of the 917 created a lot of lift, which means that at high speeds, the car was being pushed upwards, reducing the grip of the tires on the road. This made the car feel light and unstable, especially at the rear. So now, the question arises, what's the play with aerodynamics? Well, car enthusiasts like us know how much aerodynamics is a big factor while building race cars. The Porsche 917's aerodynamics were initially all about reducing drag and boosting top speed. This sleek design was great for making the car fast, but it had a big downside. It didn't provide enough stability. The car's long tail design looked cool and helped it cut through the air, but it didn't generate enough downforce. Downforce pushes the car down onto the track, giving the tires a better grip and making the car more stable. Without enough of it, the 917 had a tendency to oversteer where the back end slides out too much and understeer where the car doesn't turn as much as you want it to. In testing and early races, it quickly became clear that the car needed more downforce to stay planted on the track and handle better. One unit even hit over 380 kilometers an hour on the Mulsanne Straight. But despite this, drivers were still hesitant to drive this car and opted for the 908 instead. The 917 was unreliable and, to be honest, very hard to control. PX's focus on minimizing drag and downforce resulted in a practically undrivable car. This was clearly shown when the cars came into the pits at the 1969 Le Mans. Now you may call it over-engineering. So now, the very important question arises, why was Porsche forced to produce the 917 without doing the correct math and engineering? There's a big reason behind that. In 1967, the world of racing saw some big changes. The rules for the 24 hours of Le Mans were updated to make the competition more balanced and safer. Before these new regulations, racing cars could have very powerful engines, which led to incredibly fast but also very dangerous races. The problem was that these high-powered engines made cars very expensive to build and maintain. Plus, with speeds climbing so high, the risk of accidents was also increasing. So the governing body of the race decided it was time for a change. They introduced a new rule that limited engine sizes to 3 liters for the cars competing in the race. This was done to help control speeds and make the cars safer and more affordable. However, there was a catch. The rule also stated that if a manufacturer wanted to use a bigger engine, up to 5 liters in size for instance, they'd have to produce at least 25 road-going versions of that car. This rule was meant to ensure that the racing cars were somewhat based on real everyday cars rather than being purely track machines. Well, for Porsche, this new rule was both a challenge and an opportunity. At that time, Porsche was a relatively small car manufacturer and it hadn't made a big impact on racing yet. The 3-liter engine limit meant it couldn't just use its existing engine designs to compete with the bigger manufacturers. However, Porsche saw the 5-liter engine rule as a chance to make a real impact. They knew that a car with a larger engine could potentially be much faster and more competitive, but the problem was making 25 of these cars qualify. It was a big ask for a company that wasn't yet a dominant force in racing. So, Porsche decided to take the challenge head-on. They needed to come up with a new innovative car that wouldn't only meet the new regulations, but also give them a competitive edge. This was the beginning of the Porsche 917 story. The engineers at Porsche worked around the clock to design and build the 917. They had to figure out how to create a car that was both powerful and light, and one that could handle the pressure of a 24-hour race. Building these many cars in a tight time frame was a massive ask, but Porsche was determined to make it happen. They used advanced materials and techniques to make the car as lightweight as possible. This included using titanium and aluminum, which weren't commonly used in racing cars at that time. The engineers also developed a new chassis design that was incredibly strong yet very light. This was crucial because, as we discussed earlier, a lighter car could be faster and more agile. Porsche's efforts paid off when they managed to build and deliver the 25 cars just in time. This allowed them to enter the race with a 5-liter engine, giving them a significant advantage over competitors who were still limited to the smaller engines. This is the main reason the company manufactured this car, but it didn't go as planned as we discussed earlier, and most of our viewers will doubt what Porsche did with their problematic 917. So what did you think of this amazing story of the 917? Comment your thoughts on this, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.